Besties, you are not ready for what just exploded in this case, because the judge has officially handed down a ruling so shocking, so unprecedented, and so dangerous for Blake Lively that it might be the moment everything changes forever. New evidence is surfacing, secret testimonies being exposed, and the court just confirmed something Blake never expected to hear. This is the twist nobody in Hollywood saw coming, and it could reshape the entire narrative forever. In the aftermath of the judge's explosive ruling, the entire Hollywood landscape felt like it shifted under its own weight, because this moment was never supposed to happen, and yet it has arrived with a force that no publicist, no strategist, and certainly no celebrity ego could hope to withstand. As the legal spotlight intensifies around Blake Lively, people close to the situation are quietly admitting that the ripple effect from this decision is already spiraling into something bigger than anyone predicted. And the reactions inside the industry are telling a story far more chaotic and far more revealing than the clean, controlled narrative her team has been trying to present for months. Because behind the scenes, frantic calls are being made, alliances are being tested, and the once unshakable confidence surrounding her public image is starting to look like a carefully painted illusion, cracking at the edges. As more information comes forward and certain truths grow harder to spin, the most startling part of this twist is not just the evidence itself, but the way it dismantles the comfortable myth that some celebrities are untouchable, protected by their fame, their connections, and the well-oiled machines that normally shield them from real accountability. But this time, that machine is failing, and people who once insisted nothing could ever pierce that PR armor are watching in quiet disbelief as the court exposes every hidden detail, piece by piece, leaving nothing for anyone to conveniently smooth over or hide behind. The ruling landed like a cinematic explosion, unraveling months of speculation in whisper circles within the industry. Because insiders have been hinting for weeks that something massive was coming, something that would force Hollywood to confront a narrative it had been tiptoeing around. But no one expected the judge's wording to be this direct or this devastating for Blake. And the moment it became public, everything changed instantly. Conversations shifted, industry power dynamics wobbled, and the controlled media messaging that her team had been trying to enforce evaporated like smoke under a spotlight. The truth is that people in Hollywood talk constantly, and when they sense weakness, they talk even louder, which is why the atmosphere around this case is becoming more electric and more unpredictable than ever before, because actors, producers, directors, assistants, publicists, and even crew members are all tuning into every update, every filing, every leak, trying to anticipate how this decision might reshape the professional relationships that have defined so many of their careers for years. And at the center of all this is Blake confronting the reality that the narrative she attempted to build around herself is no longer aligning with the reality that is being revealed through official channels and legal documentation. And for a celebrity whose brand has always relied on precision, polish, and charm, that misalignment is dangerous in ways that stretch beyond any courthouse. Her inner circle is reportedly scrambling to regroup, drawing up new strategies while simultaneously attempting to figure out who may have already turned away from her as the pressure escalates. Because the rule in Hollywood has always been simple. When someone's power begins to slip, people start quietly distancing themselves, and Blake is facing the first real signs that some of the people she trusted to stand by her may no longer see the benefit in doing so, especially as more details are positioned to become public in the coming days. At the same time, Justin Baldoni has emerged in a drastically different position, because while Blake's team had long insisted that this case was baseless or exaggerated, the judge's ruling has flipped that narrative upside down, casting doubt on many of the claims made against him, and igniting a wave of public sympathy and support that even his critics admit is growing stronger by the hour. Because when a judge formally recognizes the relevance of evidence that one side had desperately hoped to keep buried, the entire perception of the case transforms overnight. And that transformation is already being felt across social media, entertainment circles, and legal commentary spaces, where analysts are now breaking down the ruling line by line, noting the implications that stretch far beyond the immediate drama. This shift has also triggered a flood of reactions from fans, observers, and commentators who have long suspected that something deeper was happening beneath the polished surface of this conflict. And now they feel vindicated, energized, and more vocal than ever, because nothing fuels public engagement like the confirmation that hidden information is finally being pushed into the light. The anticipation around what comes next is becoming almost unbearable, and that anticipation is exactly what is making Blake's situation so precarious, because the one thing any celebrity fears in a legal battle is losing control of the story. And at this moment, she does not just lack control, she is watching it slip further away with each passing hour. But the psychological pressure building behind the scenes is even more intense than what the public is seeing, because being at the center of a spiraling narrative forces every decision, every statement, every move to be examined under a microscope. And those close to Blake say she is becoming increasingly distressed as the magnitude of this ruling sinks in, recognizing that the calm, controlled exterior she usually maintains is no longer enough to shield her from the growing fallout. Meanwhile, industry insiders are quietly questioning why her team seemed so unprepared for this ruling, why their messaging seemed to collapse so quickly, and why several of their key talking points were dismantled the moment the judge spoke. Because this tells a story of poor preparation, miscalculated confidence, and a fundamental misunderstanding of how rapidly public opinion can shift once real legal authority steps into the spotlight. This is the moment where the facade crumbles, where PR strategies no longer apply, where the truth of the situation becomes impossible to repackage or reframe, because the court has sliced through the surface level noise and gone straight to the facts that matter. And those facts are painting a picture that is far less flattering than anything her team has tried to push for months. And as the implications settle across the industry, people who once viewed Blake as a powerful, unshakable force are now whispering that her influence may be dwindling faster than anyone expected. And in Hollywood, perception is everything, because the moment people believe your power is slipping, that belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. As opportunities start shrinking, invitations stop arriving, partnerships quietly dissolve, and the phone stops ringing. And now with this ruling, the question everyone is asking is simple. If this is only the beginning of the evidence that will eventually be made public, what else is coming? And how much more damaging could the next wave of revelations be? Because if even a fraction of what insiders are hinting at becomes part of the official record, Blake's world may be heading toward a level of scrutiny and exposure she has never experienced before and may not be prepared to handle. As the storm intensifies, there is a growing sense that we are no longer witnessing a typical celebrity feud or a temporary PR nightmare, but something much bigger, a genuine unraveling that could redefine not just her career, but her entire public identity. And the people who have been watching this drama unfold from behind closed doors are quickly recognizing that this is not the kind of story that dies down quietly or disappears on its own. This is the kind of storm that builds layer by layer until the inevitable breaking point arrives. And when it does, the fallout could reshape relationships, careers, and reputations across the entire industry in ways no one anticipated even just a few weeks ago. And as the dust continued to swirl around this unfolding storm, people close to the situation began whispering that the next phase of this drama was already locked in motion, and that the individuals behind the scenes were preparing for what could become one of the most chaotic public reckonings Hollywood had seen in years. Because the legal maneuvers that had once seemed abstract and distant were now becoming tangible, concrete, and intensely personal. And the people involved could no longer pretend this was simply a misunderstanding or a harmless disagreement. No, this was a calculated series of events with consequences that no one could escape. Not Blake, not Ryan, not Justin, and certainly not the witnesses who had already been pulled into this tangled web.
And as observers began piecing together the timeline, it became clear that the tension between these camps had been simmering long before the public ever caught a hint of it, because insiders now revealed that the earliest signs of turmoil appeared during those quiet periods when everyone assumed Blake and Justin were aligned and moving forward with a shared vision. But in reality, something much darker had been building beneath the surface, and those close to the production noticed a shift in energy, a tightening of control, a discomfort in communication.
And that discomfort only grew as creative disagreements turned into personal disputes, and personal disputes turned into absolute resentment. And the resentment spilled into every conversation, email, and private meeting until it could no longer be contained. And when legal teams entered the picture, the entire dynamic collapsed, because the moment lawyers touched the situation, the tone shifted from irritation to escalation. And that escalation now serves as the heart of the battle we are watching unfold. Because what once looked like a simple disagreement snowballed into allegations, into leaked messages, into accusations of misconduct, and into claims that one side was manipulating the truth for the sake of public sympathy. And the possibility that evidence long hidden might reveal who orchestrated which part of this disaster fueled an online frenzy that no one in any camp could control. And the court notices issued last week only intensified the chaos, signaling that more names could be dragged in and more secrets could be forced into the light. And that looming threat is what kept Hollywood insiders awake at night, because despite the attempts from both sides to control the narrative, the truth, or at least the version documented in legal filings, was pushing closer and closer to exposure. And that threat had publicists scrambling to craft statements, adjust messaging, and brace their clients for the possibility that nothing could be contained. And the idea that this case could break open at any moment created pressure that trickled into every level of the industry. Agents, directors, producers, brand managers, and studio executives quietly discussed contingency plans, whispered about damage control strategies, and contemplated the long-term fallout, because the entertainment industry thrives on image control. And when even the illusion of control is lost, careers crumble, opportunities disappear, and reputations that took decades to build can be destroyed in minutes. And that fear was magnified by the fact that social media had already made up its mind, painting Blake as the villain in some corners, painting Justin as the villain in others, and leaving audiences more polarized than ever. And that polarization was not a side effect, but a direct consequence of the relentless drip feed of information, confusion, leaks, and speculation that had blanketed the internet, turning every small detail into a headline, every rumor into a talking point, and every misstep into evidence, fueling the latest theory. And while fans clashed online, the legal teams quietly sharpened their strategies, preparing to dissect every statement, every text, and every contradiction, because they knew that once evidence became public, the narrative would no longer be controlled by tweets, posts, or PR spin. It would be shaped by the hard reality documented in court filings, affidavits, and sworn testimony. And that is the reality Blake appears increasingly desperate to avoid, because sources now suggest she is bracing for fallout she never anticipated, and that the fear behind the scenes has forced several emergency strategy sessions, not only with her legal representatives, but also with her brand partners and advisors, all of whom are deeply concerned that the next wave of revelations could trigger irreversible consequences for her public image. And that concern is amplified by whispers that new evidence will paint a picture far more complicated than the version her team has pushed publicly, because the hints from individuals with knowledge of the testimony suggest that multiple witnesses contradicted elements of her narrative, leaving the court to question the consistency of her claims. And that question is what may have opened the door for Justin's team to push for even broader discovery and even more disclosures from individuals who never expected to be pulled pulled into this mess, but now find themselves waiting for subpoenas that could drop at any moment, creating an atmosphere of dread in Hollywood, because no one wants to be dragged into a firestorm they did not start. And yet the pattern suggests that more people are about to be named, and more testimony is about to be uncovered, meaning the next chapter of this battle will be even more unpredictable, explosive, and personally damaging than anything we have seen so far. And that is exactly why industry insiders are calling this the most volatile celebrity legal conflict of the decade, because every attempt to shut it down seems to make it grow bigger. Every attempt at silence is met with new leaks. Every attempt at control is met with deeper scrutiny. And that cycle has now locked everyone involved into a momentum they cannot stop, because the machine of public interest is roaring, and the truth is clawing its way to the surface, whether the parties like it or not. And as that reality becomes unavoidable, the pressure intensifies, because behind closed doors, the conversations have shifted from how to contain the damage to how to survive what comes next. And that shift is crucial to understanding just how dangerous the situation is for Blake, Ryan, and their entire inner circle. Because if even a fraction of the rumored evidence is as damning as insiders suggest, then the coming month could reshape the Hollywood landscape, rewrite public opinion, and permanently alter the power dynamics between the stars involved. And the studios watching nervously from the sidelines, wondering how long they can remain silent before they too are forced to respond to the chaos that is swallowing everything in its path. And if you think this story is anywhere near finished, think again, because every hour new pieces are shifting, new names are getting dragged in, and the pressure on Blake and Ryan is rising faster than anyone expected. The next reveal could drop at any moment, and when it does, it won't just shake the case, it will shake Hollywood to its core. So brace yourself, because the real explosion hasn't even hit yet.